Hello guys, and welcome to this new video. So this is the last round of the Sinquefield Cup we are going to watch today, and we are starting with the game between Veselin, Topalov and Levon Aronian. So Aronian was a pawn above a group of 4 players before the round, and he needed to make a draw with the black pieces against Topalov. Topalov was not playing for the first place anymore, but still he could join and tie up the second place. So well, this game has some interest for both players. So d4 was played, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, bishop d5, sorry, knight c3, bishop b4. So it's written in the database it's going to a Ragozin variation. I'm not sure about that. I'll always repeat myself, but not good with the name of the openings. Bishop g5, pawn c4, so winning a pawn for the time being. Queen a4 check, double attack, attacking the king and the bishop. I hope you find the right move to defend both pieces. It's knight c6, covering the check and defending the bishop, and pawn to a3. It's a line that scores pretty badly for white, and I'm not sure why Topalov decided to play this, as it doesn't seem to me it's too hard to play with black, though it involves a pawn sacrifice. I mean, black is going to be a pawn up, and white is going to have some compensation for the pawn, and maybe decided as Aronian it just needs a draw. It could try to make this sacrifice, and then if something, Aronian will always be really glad just to take the draw and not force a win. So maybe that's the reason why he decided to make this sacrifice. So here white goes knight d2. So the idea is to go pawn to e4 and hit the pawn on c4. Black goes pawn to b5, protecting the pawn. Queen c2. So the queen is well placed here. Pawn to a6, pawn to e4, queen d7. So I'm just moving the move a bit quicker. So queen d7 is okay because the bishop anyway wants to go to b7, so it's a good square. Pawn to g3. White is going to put up some pressure on the long diagonal. As you will see, sometimes the bishop might be a bit, might be hanging. Bishop b7, bishop g2. And here we have to talk about the plan. So the most classical plan for black here, to even take the advantage, I would say, if white doesn't meet it well. So let's talk about the pawn structure. So black has 2 double pawns, but he is a pawn up. So he has somehow a good control of the center with its pawn, even if the pawn structure is a bit shattered. Also, if we talk about this pawn chain, a6, b5, c4, white is going to try to attack that by castling, playing a4 and rook b1, and the pawn is somehow weak on b5, and this bishop behind on b7 is for the moment is loose, so the pawn on b5 is pinned. Like if you would imagine that white goes rook b1, he would threat knight takes c4, pawn takes c4, and rook takes b7 if the rook is on b1. So white is going to try to destroy the queen side and keep the center and keep the pawns in the center, while white has 2 moves that are classical here, that are pawn to c5, which is the most textbook plan is to play c5 and to destroy the white center, because if you can destroy the center, then those 3 pawns are just becoming giants. So they go from red to green. The other idea might be to play f5 also, with the same idea to break this center. Here the computer is offering an interesting move, which is e5. I won't analyze that in deepness, but if you see your computer showing those moves and grandmaster don't playing it, or even people not mentioning that in the analysis or in their videos, is because, by example, a move like e5 is really unhuman here, because the king, it has to go king side here. You don't really want to go queen side, because white is going to bring its pieces, and as I said, the plan of white is anyway to break up this pawn chain. So king side looks safe, but now that you gave up the f5 spot for a knight, your dark squares around your king became really weak. So that's why a human being would never play e5, though it doesn't mean it's a bad move. It means that it's really rarely a good move because it involves a lot of compensation for white, and it's a move basically a human being would not play if he was not prepared with the computer before the game. Because, I mean, it's way too risky and it's not really rewarding. So black goes knight e7. So bringing the knight away, starting both plans. So now we have f5, c5 available as the knight is protecting. White castle, black castles, rook fd1. So fighting against the c5 pawns, c5 idea somehow. Rook a d8. It's bringing piece to the center. Pawn to a4. So starting the idea to take and rook b1, and maybe then knight c4 is available. Black goes c5. Now, pawn takes b5, pawn takes b5, and the move knight to f3. So knight f3 is a logical move because now if we take, it can take with the knight, and the thing is that this knight is well placed to attack the pawn, and after rook b1, it's pretty. This pawn on b5 is pretty annoying, and this knight is really well placed. So black is not in a hurry to make this exchange. That's why he plays queen c7. The thing is that, yeah, queen c7. The thing is that now if you take, and knight b4, knight d4, so playing this idea, I guess here black, maybe not immediately, but ideas with b4 are coming really quickly. The thing is that it's the same position as we had, just black won 2 tempi, and black is here really. We have time to make a lot of things, so this b4 move, maybe a move like knight c6 here is also possible. So, I mean, sometimes, I just want to compare, sometimes you have a position and we say, like, look at this pawn structure, it's not good for black because the pawn on b5 is being hit. In this position that I just showed here, it's exactly the same pawn structure and the same pattern. Just because the queen is on c5, white doesn't have time to put pressure strongly on b5, and that's why black is okay. So often it's a question also of tempo, like who is first to hit the opponent. As I said, a move like knight c6, by example, might look really good because the knight has to be exchanged. You have no time to take this pawn on b5. So rook a b1 was played by white, again putting pressure. Black goes f5. So he's just trying to equalize here with the move f5. He could have tried, instead of f5, queen b6, pawn takes, and again this move knight d4. Just highlighting this move really, because now as the rook is on b1, black has no time to play b4 or knight c6, and this is really unclear. I watched a bit with the computer. It's I mean it's unbalanced. White has some compensation with those double pawns, this somehow weak king, and this pawn on c3 is stopping those 2 pawns. So it's unbalanced. So it's a pawn up, but white has compensation. No time to play knight c6 again. I'm just showing it again because of knight takes b5. So, black plays f5, a forcing move. So now white takes on f5. It's pretty much forced. If not, we are going to take it ourselves. Knight takes f5. The knight lands on the perfect square. Rook takes b5, winning the pawn. Bishop f3. Bishop f3. Pawn takes d4. So the last 4-5 moves been forced. Now white can't retake the pawn because simply of knight to d4, making a perfect fork. 1, 2, 3. So white goes queen to c1 with the mighty idea to go queen g5. Those dark squares still weak. Black could try to play queen e7. I mean, he plays pawn takes d3, which is a very forcing line. He could have tried queen e7, bishop e4, so threatening the knight, pawn to d3, bishop takes, pawn takes, rook takes, and pawn to f6. With a very unbalanced game, this king is somehow weak, but those 2 pawns are good, especially the pawn on d3. It's really a 3 results game. Anybody could win that, and that's totally not what Aronian wants, because he just wants to draw. So no point to go to this line, even if I prefer even to play white here, because I mean the weak king is always a problem. Like you have many chances to white to always have escapes with perpetual check. But if black loses the c4 pawn, he loses the d3 pawn, and this is game over. So I think somehow that I mean, not objectively, but in terms of play, it's easier for white to get the full point here compared to black. So he went pawn takes c3, and he's pretty much forcing now. As white is as to save material now. I mean, he has a forced perpetual, but if you go like queen takes c3 with retaking the pawn, rook takes d1, bishop takes d1, and a move like queen d7, going for queen d4. It's not sure white is losing the game. Probably can even draw, but I mean, white is surely fighting to re-win the pawn c4, and if he does, black will always be able to trade the queens on the way, and this is going to be a draw. So you have still to fight to proceed with your draw here with white. That's why he's not taking the pawn. He better takes the knight, rook takes d1, bishop takes d1, pawn takes f5, and I think that you can find within 5 seconds how white is proceeding with the draw. Here, how white makes the draw. So it goes queen g5 check, king h8, queen f6, king g8, queen g5, and this is a draw. And so that's how Levon Aronian won this game. As you see, we just analyzed it for 12 minutes because there are not much to say. Both players just played their classical plan, and the game just as water is falling under the bridge. The game was just gone really quickly. Like at the first moment, at the first complication after f5, pawn takes f5, knight f5. So rook b5 is pretty much forced if you want to get anything. Bishop f3 forces bishop takes f3, pawn takes d4. Here, I mean, queen c1 is not forced, but it's by far the best move because you really need to land on g5. I mean, if not, it's just going to play d3 and queen e7, and it's game over for you. It's queen c1, pawn takes c3, and now if you retake the pawn, you have to fight for the draw. So you just take the draw that is available. So a very, I mean, somehow simple game. And I mean, Aronian was a bit better after the opening, but didn't need to try to win, so he was happy to settle with a draw. Let's go to our next game. We will not watch the full game as the tournament is over, and frankly, I'm happy because it was a lot of games, a lot of commentary, a lot of analyze with the computer and all. So we are just going to watch the end game. Pretty beautiful play by Hikaru Nakamura against Alexander Grichuk. So it's black to play, and the idea here of white is if you play a move like a5, just playing a no-sense move, bishop e5 check, king g6, and rook f8, and you cannot save your rook anymore, and the pawn is going to be queened. So that's the idea of white. So it's running bishop e5, rook f8, black plays h6, bishop e5 check, king h7, rook f7 check, king g6, rook f8, threatening the rook, and king h7 is forced because if you move the rook away, you lose everything. Sorry. I mean, you lose the knight first, and then you lose the knight first, and then the pawn is going to be queened, and and you cannot do nothing to protect the rook. So king h7 is forced. So that's the position we have here, and black is in a zugzwang. It can't move its rook because the knight is falling. It can't move the knight because if you would go knight g7, let's just play a nonsense move because I don't want to show you the move of the game. If you go knight g7, it's met by bishop takes g7. If you take with the rook, it's a queen. If you take with the queen, it's a take and a queen. So black is in the zugzwang. And here, while he's playing a very beautiful move that is going to win all the 3 pawns pretty quickly. He goes bishop f4. The thing is that whatever you do, if you go by example, let's say knight g7, I'm playing bishop h6. If you move your knight away, I take your rook and I queen my pawn. So it's game over. The only thing you can do here is go back on e8. I mean, you don't have any other move available. So what I do next is that I bring my bishop on e3 and I take the pawns. That's how the game continued. He played a5. Just I want to show you that except king h8, king h7 and knight to somewhere and knight come back, you don't have any moves for black and you cannot do any plans. Bishop f4, a5 trying to launch the pawn. Bishop takes h6, a4. Continuing. Now what we do? We go to grab this pawn. Bishop e3, a3, bishop c5, a2, and bishop d4. So now we won the 2 pawns and this one is blocked. But black can't do anything. Knight c7, bishop a1, knight e8. So here, what do? We push the pawn for a moment and then we'll search for a plan. Because anyway, it's free. We can push it 1, 2 times. So now we have to find a plan to win the game as white. Because if we could push the pawn further, it doesn't make sense, does it? The pawn is going to be won. So how could we improve our position and win the game here? Which is the piece we could improve to finish the job? 10 seconds. So yes, while he's playing king h4, knight c7, king h5, knight e8, and now the thing is that the move rook f7 is already winning, probably, but while he's playing c7, and black resigns because the only move it can play is knight takes c7, rook f7 check, but now the king on g5 took control of the g6 square and black just doesn't have any move but to give up its rook. So it's game over, black resigned and white took the full point. Just a beautiful idea from this moment. Yeah, bishop f4, taking all the pawns. I mean, taking the 2 pawns, bringing the bishop then to a1, push the pawn and bring the king to h5. So this is a perfect plan, perfectly realized by Nakamura. Just being clinical, very well endgame play by white. So let's go to the final standing of the tournament. So we have Levon Aronian first, winning the tournament with 6 points out of 9, pretty impressive. Then Carlsen, Nakamura, Vasilagov and Giri with 5 points. Giri did 8 draws and the win. He probably has to sharpen his style a bit in order to contend for the first place in such tournament. I'm thinking about the candidates. If you want to have a chance to win the candidates, he definitely needs to take more risks. Grichuk made a big comeback in the tournament. I mean, he was starting with -2, finishes 50%, even losing the last round. So I think he's glad of his tournament after the start. Topalov certainly deceived. He was leading after 4 rounds and then lost the track, finally finishing on 50%. Caruana must be upset. Last year he started with 7 out of 7. This year, after 9 rounds, he just have 3.5. So he would needed 18 rounds to make as well as last year in 7th. So probably not glad about this one. Vishy Anand, after a bad start, I mean, he started with -2. He made 7 draws in a row, if I'm correct, to finish with 3.5 as well. Well, he's already 45, so I guess it's hard for him to be on the top of his form on every single tournament. But I'm sure he's going to be a threat for the next candidates again. You should not write him off he was still number 2 at the rating list before the tournament. And Wesley played pretty bad. I really didn't like his preparation. The opening preparation was pretty bad for the whole tournament. And he finishes last with 3 out of 9. So thank you for watching the Sinquefield Cup. I think I will be back with some World Cup action in Baku. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching those videos. Bye.